All right. Let's see our beautiful faces here. We are live with the Survivor Calgary Brains versus Brawn versus Belligerents recap ep. We're going to be
Woo!
talking to our latest player eliminated shortly. If you're scared of spoilers, this is the time to leave now. We'll be talking to Greg as well as his tri-mate Chelsea shortly. But first, Kendal, what did you think of that episode?
It was so fun. It was so fun. It was a wild time. This is like the early episodes when you get to start to see the social game fill out a little bit is really exciting. All my notes are like like early alliances forming, like trying to
Yeah,
keep track. Yeah, so it was
let's
fun.
talk about a little bit of that social game. We'll start, I guess, first with kind of where the episode started, which was the Belligerents tribe,
Mhm.
where we'll get to the Brains tribe a little bit later, but we kind of see this dichotomy here forming right away, where the Belligerents tribe, their first tribal council, they were a little bit split. The Brains tribe, their first tribal council, they were a little bit more cohesive and together. But both tribes kind of still trying to find out who's going to be in control of it a little bit early.
Yeah.
Who were you impressed by on the belligerent side?
Okay. I mean, I think that the belligerents group on the whole is really very fun. And I love the chaos. And I think that that's what makes good reality television. So I think that I'm a fan all around. I feel like I'm trying to keep track of who all of the people are and still, still get a sense of that. But I mean, I think that Malone is interesting, and I think the way that the episode panned out towards the end, like I'm curious. I've got my eye on him for sure.
Malone, after finding, we'll get to the challenge a little bit later, but
Yeah.
two idols right off the bat. Seems to be seemingly in a pretty good place with his tribe. He's
Mm-hmm.
super close with Craig. He's super close with Conrad. Those three seem to kind of be at the nexus of things right now.
Mm-hmm.
We did see Craig, aka Trivia Daddy, talk a little bit about kind of joining the stragglers, which are Haley and Kayla, kind of right now on that tribe. So it'll be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see kind of how things develop on that tribe moving forward.
For sure. Well, and I think like the I thought it was interesting that it's Trivia Daddy and Malone, which are already talking about final two. It's like it's a little early for those kind of commitments.
Who you're like this with right away, right? Obviously, the game can go different ways, but finding those people that you can trust, I think at least,
That's fair.
is a pretty good recipe for an early kind of push towards the late game.
That's fair.
Um, yeah, I mean, if you're Kayla on this tribe, how are you feeling? You're the only person who didn't vote properly in the last tribal council, their first tribal council. How are you feeling kind of being on the outs right away?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a pretty precarious. It could be a pretty precarious spot to be in. I would be a little shaky for sure, but I think that there's potential to use it as like a way to not seem super intimidating or threatening potentially, right? Like to position yourself as like, oh, I'm confused, right? And even if you are genuinely confused, but like using that as a way to get in with some of the other folks. And that whole team is chaotic, right? So I don't think that like
They're the belligerents tribe for a reason.
yeah, yeah, it was cast well. The like switch when we go into the brains is like, oh, just I think I wrote down someone on the brains team was like, I appreciate the open discussions we were able to have. It's like this is
I
a
also
very
really like how
different like
the Brains tribe described themselves as a sweet and sensitive tribe. Made my heart kind of glow a little bit. I really like it. Now,
yeah,
obviously, to state the elephant in the room, two things I have to say before we keep talking about the episode.
yeah.
Firstly, yes, I do look like Brains tribe Captain Keegan. I am his twin brother. I was on production this season. Um, cool. Moving forward. The second one, if anyone has a question for myself or Kendall or Greg or Chelsea, who will be here later, feel free to post it in the chat on YouTube or on the stream. We'll be able to see it. We'll be able to highlight it here and answer it. No problem at all. So let us know if you have anything to say. With that being said, let's now move forward to talk about that Brains tribe, that sweet and sensitive group of
I just want to hug them all.
People.
Sorry to interrupt you. I would like to be in the middle of a group hug with all of the
With all
Brains
5 Brains players, yeah. I mean, they seem to be pretty united after that Bomi vote, but we do see a little bit later on some talks from Kristen, from Taylor, from a few other people that are like, okay, yeah, we're good right now, but like this is kind of who I want to aim for next. Talk me through what you think of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because they seem like if they're the type, it seems like the type of players, like if I was there in production and filming, like I would trust what they were, I would believe all of the words that they were saying, like not even just as a player, but like on the other side of it, like they're really convincing. Like when Taylor was talking to Kristen about being open to like voting for Katie and being like, I'm terrified of Katie. And it was really very convincing.
And then going to Katie and being like, yeah, I mean, if we have to cut Kristen.
Yeah, for sure. And I was like appreciating Kristen's monochrome outfit. And I was like, maybe this is a person that I like. And so when Taylor said that, I was like, I don't like you. I have decided that you're a villain in this.
Taylor front runner for the leading schemer award for sure.
Yeah.
Where he's kind of already going back and forth and telling everyone what they want to hear, and trying to kind of keep himself safe with that core 3 that he described of Katie and Keegan and himself. For sure. We also see them hunt together as a group for idols. Willow not be too big of a fan of that. But yeah, let's quickly circle back to the start of the episode. I know, Kendal, that you are a big fan of Justine, and we see her
R.I.P.
unfortunately fall in this first egg challenge to Bomi with that first throw. How do you feel about the egg so far? How do you feel about these 2 stellar players voted out so early, so soon?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. It is sad. R.I.P. Justine. I really enjoyed her. She was like the top tier player in the first episode. I really enjoyed watching her. So sad to see. And both of them are really exciting players. But I think that also feels like, also makes it feel like the edge is going to be interesting right off the, like really exciting right off the bat. And both players seem pretty stoked, like invested in being there. And like the integration of edge things with the ongoing challenge, like the dodgeball stuff, like I think that was really cool and exciting. So I hope that we'll continue to get to see them both.
Definitely very clearly invested in throwing those dodgeballs, especially at the Braun tribe, seemingly for some reason.
But you know what? I feel like that's fair, given that neither of them is from the Braun tribe, and that Braun's dominated in.
Yeah, but Braun didn't vote them out.
I guess
hard feelings towards them.
That's fair, but they don't know when they're coming back, right? Like, do edge players? They don't know at what point in the. I don't know. I feel like
they usually have an idea that it's around merge and it's around near the end of the game, but definitely don't have like an exact point in time in that for sure.
Yeah, but if it was me, because they're not going to have relationships with other players, right? So I think being maybe a little softer on the people on their first tribe is not a bad idea.
For sure. Before we move on to talking about that challenge, one very important question for you, Kendal: crash or burn?
Crash.
I
think just on the vibes, I think crash. Yeah, I think that's the right way to go.
Knowing what crash and burn is, I think I'm more of a coffee guy than a hot sauce guy.
For sure. But it also just feels right. I think when I think of if you have to pick like a fate for yourself, crash feels like a better fate.
Kind of similar to like frog or toad discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Exactly.
Talking about that challenge, obviously a little bit of a hiccup on production side where the paper was placed upside down and
there's always got to be one.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I don't exactly know where everything went wrong, but it did. And some of the competitors adapted quickly. Some of them unfortunately didn't. We saw some confusion from the Braun tribe in terms of how it got turned around. I think the Belligerents tribe was also pretty confused, but thankfully Kayla was just kind of flicking through the number lock the entire time and managed to unlock it.
Yeah.
Speaking about the challenge and especially about that Belligerent side though, in that first episode we saw that idol clue. under some symbols after a long run, and a few of the people picked it up really quick, and a few of them did not. We saw Conrad and we saw Kayla run by that immunity idol, not even look underneath the symbols for it. Then we saw Malone right in front of Katie manage to snag it.
That was so impressive. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. It was really impressive.
It really was. Watching back that footage, I was like, how did he do that? And how did she not see him?
Yeah. I mean, I think that though, like, I think that there's something to be said for some familiarity with Survivor as a game, because like I had never watched a Survivor season prior to Survivor Calgary. Before we did Survivor Calgary season 2, I had never seen Survivor before. Lots of reality TV, but not Survivor. And so I don't think that I appreciated like how much a little bit of knowledge about the game would serve you well. And I think like the attentiveness to detail and not writing anything off as chance, but like knowing that there are going to be idols, that there are going to be clues, there you should be looking underneath,
eyes peeled at all times.
I think that comes maybe with a little bit of familiarity with the game, I don't know, but I think it was really, I mean, we saw in season 2, it was like production had to move the idols closer into where players were playing because they were like walking. They were just walking right by them.
Walking so far. In season 3, we did make finding the idols a little bit easier, I think. We'll see more players find them. We saw Malone find one this episode.
Yeah.
And those expiring idols do, as a little bit of a hint for later in the season, they do play a big impact, especially in this pre-merge. But another kind of important decision that was made during the challenge, and we'll bring Craig and Chelsea in to talk about this a little bit later, was the decision for someone to sit out.
Right.
And it's kind of unclear to us right now whether that played an impact and whether Greg or Chelsea were made bigger targets or not. But certainly always an interesting decision to pick who gets to sit out, who would have helped, who we don't need. And they decided, hey, we don't need Greg, and he ended up going home that night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that it feels like a risky decision, but it's because you really never know how that's going to play out, right? Like if you're gonna fuck it up and you're gonna be like the reason that you lose your tribe loses the challenge, then like maybe it's better to sit that one out or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of calculation. But didn't they do rock paper scissors to decide?
They did,
yeah. So
maybe the rock paper scissors go differently. We're talking Chelsea as the exit boot and Greg as her tribe mate. Yeah. Anyway, with that being said, before we get into the kind of the discussion before tribal and tribal council itself, let's bring Greg and Chelsea into the stream. Hello, both. How are you doing? How's it going?
Good. Hi.
Hi.
How you guys doing?
Yeah, yes. Good. Let's hear from you first. How's that feeling? Sure. How does it feel to watch it back?
It was pretty rough, but it's the game.
Yeah.
There's I think mostly I feel bad for talking shit to Shervin that one evening before more than anything. I was kind of out of line, to be honest, and I could see why he would be upset.
Yeah, Shervin for everyone's reference, for people who don't know, he was at the time studying to be a lawyer. Greg did not take too kindly to that on day 0. Not that I heard anything bad about it, but I think those day 0 conversations might impact people a little bit more than you think. They can leave an impact. Chelsea, how did it feel for you watching back the episode?
It was good. Brought back some memories for sure. I mean, I still felt really bad about the Greg vote. I hadn't really wanted it to go that way. Greg and I had an initial alliance before I had kind of joined up with Eric and Shervin and Sydney. But I just didn't think it was going to be strong enough at that point, like once we got to the end there. So it was good to watch it back, but yeah, I still felt bad about it.
Yeah, let's you brought that up. Kind of, Greg, you brought up the Survivor Edmonton idea a lot early on in this season. And while it does maybe bring me as a Calgarian a bit of joy to see that quashed, what was kind of this end game plan for Survivor Edmonton? You were just kind of trying to bring people in cross tribal when swaps and merges happen?
Yeah, I honestly didn't really think too far ahead with it. And I was just like, well, sure, let's try this. Not
Fair.
no
A lot
huge
of the time, that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
Kendall, do you have any questions for Greg or Chelsea?
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that, like, because Survivor is such a social game, trying to find any like opportunity for common ground in a way that you can bring people together under like the name of of a group, like trying to have a Survivor Edmonton alliance. Like, I think that that's it could be a really it could be a useful tactic, right? And yeah, I mean, I think also because it's a social game, like you never know what one comment you make or what late night chat over the fire is going to how that's going to set off the rest of this social dynamics, right? So not a question, I guess, but oh, sorry, I missed that. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that like I'm always curious because there's so much that happens that like leads into a vote that even as production, that we don't get to see all of the dynamics. But Chelsea, was that how you expected the vote to go?
By the time it was done, that's how I expected it to go. I tried to convince like the foursome of us, like being Sydney, Eric, and Shervin, to go with Connell because I knew I'd heard my name from Connell and I thought, okay, like if he's going after me, I'll go after him. Plus I knew I had a bit of an alliance already initially with Greg, so I didn't want to go that way, but then I had to stay safe. And the only way to do that was to go like safety in numbers. So I followed what they chose to do.
Right. Yeah.
How close do you think that was the vote was to going towards Connell?
I thought we might have it for a while there. Like I really kind of pushed it, or at least I felt that I did. And I knew that Sydney was sort of on, the same page as me, but Shervin was really bothered about the job thing and thought that Greg was like going for him. So I finally just give in.
Okay, we do have a question from our viewers here, actually from one Tyler Malone, who might end up being the player of the episode when we discuss it. A question for Greg and Chelsea. Do you consider yourself more of a frog or more of a toad? Chelsea, we'll start with you. You're on the left.
Oh, we'll start with me. Okay, we'll go with frog because a toad's pretty slimy. I try not to be too slimy. Sorry, Greg, you might not agree, but
yeah, I'd say frog as well.
Nice. You got a whole foursome of frogs in this, which is exciting. That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else you two want to say before we wrap things up?
No, just my Greg. Sorry for voting you out in that one.
It's all good. Yeah, I guess like in the tribal, I was pretty cold to my tribe as well with the saying they were making excuses. I think that was more birth though, just from the year before, everyone being so pissed at production all the time. I'm just like trying to take heat away from that, which also didn't leave a great taste in people's mouth. So
you can see on camera to the side that I am smiling as you say that because I want you to know how much I appreciated in that moment. Definitely very appreciated to hear some backup from the players for production's woes for sure.
Well, I know it was rough the year before, so wanted to try to shut anything like that down.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining us, Greg and Chelsea. We'll let you go here. I'll remove you from the stream. Kendall, before we take off and wrap things up, question for you. Who would you say is your player of the episode for this episode 2, Survivor Calgary, Brains Brown Belligerents?
Okay. I think that it has to be Malone. I think it was just a really interesting game or like a really interesting episode for him. And I'm really curious to see where his game goes. I think he was so sneaky. He was so fast. So much potential for nip slips with the tank top choice. And I think it was a fun player this episode. I'm curious to see where he goes. I do think that Eric was an honorable mention. I thought the quick cut to him saying, yeah, I'm not going to work with Connell and Greg was really entertaining. And I think he's got some good intuition, some good sense of what the group dynamics are. And so I'm curious to see also how his game evolves.
Yeah, I have to agree on both sides. I think both are kind of on top of everything else going on. Have kind of found themselves in the middle of their tribe, which is always a great place to be this early.
For sure. Yeah. Wait, I have a question for you, Cole.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I was so shocked about Connell voting for himself.
Yes.
That really threw me off. I could not believe. So what was that like? How was your interpretation of that as a gameplay choice?
So I was behind the voting booth.
Okay.
I was the one who said no, you can't do that. I definitely
is that a
didn't know
formal rule? Are you like?
It is.
So
it is a formal rule in Survivor that you're not allowed to vote for yourself, which is why I brought it up. If I didn't know that, I would have just let it happen because it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But we've had some players try it in previous seasons, and we do have it kind of toyed with again later on in the season. I won't get into that too much, but the rule came up a surprising amount. So I'm glad to have known that. It would have been really unfortunate to have seen a 6-0 vote out for Connell if it had gone that way, where even he votes for himself.
Right.
But didn't, obviously. And Connell is just such an interesting personality to watch on the show too, where he kind of plays this larger than life, filled with bravado kind of guy.
Yeah. You never know what you're gonna really get with him, I think.
Certainly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kendal, for joining me. We'll be back here every week right after the app to continue to recap things. And thanks for joining us.
So fun. Thanks, Cole.
See you guys.
Bye.